At the Executive Strategy Summit, I pitched Project Aurora, a radical sustainability initiative to make our entire supply chain carbon negative within a decade. My colleague, Mark, nodded thoughtfully, asked clarifying questions. 2 weeks later, the CEO announced Mark's bold New Horizon initiative. The slides were my slides. The language was my language. He was hailed as a visionary. HR advised me to be a team player. I didn't scream. I didn't quit. I simply requested a lateral move to a less strategic department. And from there, in the quiet, I began to build Aurora for real. His victory party was the day I started digging his professional grave. Hello. Welcome to Hurt Stories. The boardroom of Sterling Corp is a temple to muted power. 20-foot windows overlook the city, the light filtered through louvers that cost more than my first car. The air smells of ozone from the silent climate control and a faint, expensive cedar from the furniture polish. In that room, ideas are currency, and credit is the only god. I had spent 6 months of my life, of my soul, crafting an offering to that god. It was called Project Aurora. Aurora wasn't a tweak. It wasn't a cost-saving measure. It was a complete reimagination of how a multinational manufacturing conglomerate could exist in the 21st century. It mapped a 10-year pathway to not just carbon neutrality, but carbon negativity, by reinventing our relationship with materials, logistics, and waste. It was bold, it was meticulously researched, and it was beautiful. I presented it at the annual Strategic Summit, the only woman at the director level in a room of 15 men. I remember the feel of the clicker in my hand, the weight of their gazes. I spoke for 45 minutes. I talked about closed-loop systems, about mycorrhizal fungi as biodegradable packaging, about partnering with indigenous communities for regenerative material sourcing. I saw varying degrees of interest, skepticism, and glazed boredom. And then there was Mark from Strategic Finance. He sat forward, his elbows on the polished table, his fingers steepled. He nodded. He took notes. When I finished, he was the first to speak. "Fascinating, Claire," he said, his voice a smooth baritone designed for boardrooms. "Truly visionary. I have a few clarifying questions about the phased capital allocation." He asked sharp, detailed questions about the financial modeling, probing the weak points. I answered, thinking he was engaging, helping me strengthen the pitch. I was grateful for his interest. I was a fool. 2 weeks later, an all-company email from the CEO. Subject: Leading the Future, the Horizon Initiative. I opened it, a cold knot forming in my stomach. The language was eerily familiar. A decade-long journey to redefine our environmental legacy. A closed-loop ecosystem of sustainability. The attached executive summary PDF. The formatting was different, the colors more corporate, but the core ideas, the structure, the revolutionary pillars, they were mine. At the bottom, spearheaded by Mark Evans, with the support of the Strategic Finance team. I felt the blood drain from my face, then rush back in a hot wave of humiliation and rage. I sat perfectly still in my ergonomic chair, the silence in my office roaring in my ears. I went to my boss, a kindly but ineffectual man named Robert. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Claire, I saw the presentation. The similarities are unfortunate, but Mark's initiative has broader departmental backing. The financials are tighter. It's about what's best for the company." I went to HR. A woman named Brenda with a soothing voice and dead eyes listened. She nodded sympathetically. Intellectual overlap in a collaborative environment is tricky to prove. We encourage a spirit of teamwork. Perhaps focusing on how you can contribute to the Horizon Initiative's success would be the most productive path forward. We wouldn't want this to affect perceptions of your collegiality. Collegiality. The word was a velvet glove around an iron fist. Be a team player. Don't make waves. Don't be the angry, difficult woman crying theft. Smile and applaud the man who took your spotlight. I walked back to my office, past the congratulatory murmurs in the hallways, past the slide deck of my life's work now branded with Mark's name on monitors in the lobby. In that moment, I had a choice. I could fight. I could scream, hire a lawyer, become a pariah, and likely lose because the system was built to protect the marks of the world. Or I could do something else. I requested a meeting with Robert. "I've been thinking," I said, my voice hollow but calm. "The Horizon Initiative is clearly the priority. I don't want to be a bottleneck. I'd like to move to the Operational Sustainability Department. Focus on the granular, on-the-ground implementation. It's less strategic, but my skills could be useful there." Robert looked relieved. A problem solved. No messy confrontation. "That's a mature, team-oriented decision, Claire. I'll make the call." Operational sustainability was where ideas went to die. It was the department that dealt with waste bin sorting compliance and light bulb retrofits. It was buried in the basement, figuratively and literally, next to the server rooms. My new office had no window. The hum of machinery was a constant drone. My colleagues were pragmatic, weary people who'd long ago stopped believing in vision. They saw me as a cast-off, a fallen executive. I didn't correct them. Mark, Horizon Initiative launched with fanfare, press releases, an interview in a business glossy where he talked about the moral imperative of industry. He was given a vice president title, a larger team, a soaring budget. He had weekly check-ins with the C-suite. He was the golden boy. And I began to work, not on Horizon, on Aurora, the real Aurora. From my basement tomb, I had visibility they didn't. I saw the purchase orders for the sustainable materials Horizon was specifying. Materials that were only sustainable on a spreadsheet, that came from questionable sources, whose carbon footprint was offshored. I saw the logistical plans that looked efficient in a simulation but would crumble in the face of real-world weather, labor disputes, and geopolitics. Mark's initiative was a gorgeous, hollow shell, built for quarterly reports and investor day presentations. I started small. I didn't propose anything. I asked questions. In cross-departmental emails about Horizon's rollout, I would CC the necessary people and ask, ever so politely, "Thank you for the sourcing report on the bioresin. Could we clarify the land use change calculations for the feedstock plantations? I want to ensure we're aligning with the WWF guidelines we cited in the press release." Or, "The transport model for Phase 2 is impressive. Have we stress-tested it against the potential closure of the Suez Canal? Given the current political climate, I have some historical data from a previous project that might be helpful." My questions were never accusations. They were helpful, detail-oriented, and rooted in a terrifying depth of knowledge. They were unassailable. They were also time bombs. They forced junior analysts on Mark's team to scramble, to uncover uncomfortable truths he'd glossed over. They created paper trails of doubt. Simultaneously, I began building the real network. Not the boardroom network, but the engine room network. I had coffee with the disillusioned plant manager in Ohio who knew the new, eco-friendly, solvent would gum up his lines. I listened to the head of logistics, a woman named Anya, who was furious that Horizon's plan ignored the realities of her driver schedules. I befriended the data scientists in it who were being pressured to massage the emissions models to hit Horizon's targets. I became the repository for the truth. I became the silent hub of the resistance. A year in, Horizon was starting to wobble. A pilot project in Europe failed spectacularly because the revolutionary packaging material dissolved in rain. The positive press began to be punctuated by skeptical analyst reports questioning the financials. Mark's presentations became more defensive, more reliant on buzzwords, and less on data. I chose my moment with the precision of a neurosurgeon. The company's largest client, a Fortune 50 company with its own aggressive sustainability pledges, was conducting an audit of Sterling's supply chain. Their auditors were rigorous, ruthless, and immune to buzzwords. Mark's team was in a panic, trying to wallpaper over the gaps. I did not go to the client. I did not leak documents. I simply prepared a separate internal report, not a critique of Horizon, an alternative feasibility assessment for long-term resilience. It was Aurora, but I didn't call it that. I called it the continuity protocol. It addressed every single weakness I had identified, with proven, scalable, less sexy solutions. It had sign-off from the plant managers, from logistics, from the union reps. It had data from the IT scientists. It was built from the ground up, forged in the reality of the basement, not the fantasy of the boardroom. I submitted it through official channels as a supplementary document from the Operational Sustainability Department in support of the client audit process. I CC'd the General Counsel, making it a legally discoverable part of the audit trail. The client auditors saw Horizon's glossy presentation. Then they saw my continuity protocol. They asked Mark questions based on my report. He couldn't answer them. He floundered. The veneer cracked. The fallout was swift and quiet, the way real corporate executions are. The client threatened to pull its business, citing a credibility gap in our sustainability claims. The board was furious. The CEO needed a scapegoat and a solution. Mark was promoted to a nebulous role in corporate futures, a Siberia with a nice title. The Horizon Initiative was quietly folded into a new task force. And who was asked to lead the new Sustainable Systems Integration Task Force, reporting directly to the CEO, with a mandate to stabilize and realize our environmental commitments. It was the woman from the basement, from operational sustainability. I didn't gloat. I didn't send a triumphant email. I cleaned out my desk in the windowless office and moved upstairs. The team I built, Anya from logistics, the data scientists, the plant managers, became my core team. We didn't launch with fanfare. We just started doing the work, real work. We called it the Aurora Pathway. The name was a quiet, internal homage. Those who knew, knew. Mark stopped me in the cafeteria 6 months later. He looked diminished. "Clever," he said, his voice low. "The long game. You sat down there in the dark and waited." I looked at him, this man who had tried to build a castle on my blueprint using rotten timber. "I didn't wait, Mark," I said, my voice calm. "I built. You were busy giving speeches about the bridge. I was in the water laying the foundation. You took the idea, but you never understood the work, and in the end, the work is all that speaks." I didn't need to accuse him. I didn't need to see him punished. His own hollow construct collapsed under the weight of its own emptiness. My success wasn't in his downfall. My success was in the elegant, resilient living system I built while he was busy taking bows. He stole the headline. I wrote the book. And now everyone is reading my edition. The victory wasn't in the confrontation. It was in the creation. I let my success, brick by meticulous brick, speak so loudly that his theft became nothing more than a forgotten, embarrassing whisper in the company's history. And my name is now on the foundation of everything they're building next. Thanks for listening. If you want to hear more story like this, please like the video and subscribe the channel. Hit the bell icon to get notified.